Wisconsin Motor Carrier Association actually did a study back in 2019. I know it's a little bit older. We're going to hopefully update that with the cooperation of the Wisconsin State Patrol on 18-year-old commercial drivers. Now, obviously, we know that 18, 19, and 20-year-olds can drive commercially as long as they're intrastate if they're not part of the apprenticeship program. The number one violation for an 18-year-old driver was seatbelt. That was a seatbelt violation. The number two was speeding at a low range, meaning 6 to 10 over. The number three was the higher range of over 11 miles an hour. And the number four violation was distracted driving. And when they did that study, they only found 4 instances of that.
Hey, welcome to NGT Talks. And we are super excited today to have Tim Cordula. He works for Karl's Transport in Wisconsin, and he is going to share with us about the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program, otherwise known as SDAP. And I wanted Tim to come on the show today because Tim is one of the first carriers who was approved for the SDAP, and he has already had a student go through and is continuously getting apprentices in trucking and getting them excited about a future career that they are doing now. So, Tim, thank you for being on the show.
Well, thanks, Lindsey, for having me. It's exciting for me. This has been a passion ever since I knew about the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Program, and I want to talk about as much as you want to talk about.
So tell me, just a background, how did you get into trucking?
Oh, wow. I've been in the industry almost 30 years. My first gig was delivering the 16-ounce glass Pepsi bottles way, way, way back, where we'd have, 500-600 cases of good bottles when we started and probably 200 or 300 bad bottles when we finished to try to deliver that many bottles with spring ride trucks. My uncle was in trucking. He actually lived in the Chicago area, and he was it's kind of unique. He was actually transferring hippopotamus and rhinoceros manure from the Brookfield Zoo to the Campbell Soup Company in Glen, Michigan to grow mushrooms. And that was my first experience with trucking, and I fell in love with it, and I've been basically doing it my entire adult life.
That's an interesting one. So how old were you when you got your CDL?
Actually, I was 21 when I got it. So I didn't even go through a class. I started with Pepsi as a merchandiser, and they asked me if I wanted to learn how to drive. So one of their instructors, or teachers or mentors, I should say, got me driving, and I absolutely fell in love with it. There was no such thing as an automatic or anything like that back then when I started. So it was all manual transmission, and went through the testing and got my CDL. Once I started that, I really learned to like it to the point where, all right, enough of the delivering pop bottles. I want to start seeing the country. Got my first over-the-road job with a real small company up in northern Wisconsin, way up northern Wisconsin in the Michigan, almost in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and was with them for quite a while. Went back into sales. Did a little stint with Conway Freight, which is now XPO Logistics. Actually was their operations manager for quite some time. And then decided, my love is on the road. So eventually came here to Karl's. I did a lot of analyzing, fuel mileage studies, mentoring, and the owners caught wind of that and saw that I was really interested in doing more than just trucking. So they asked me to become a driver manager. So I did that for a little bit. Worked into our safety department, and one day we were sitting there and we couldn't figure out how to fill trucks. So I mentioned the fact, well, why don't we start training our own? And they said, that sounds like a good idea. And I said, well, as long as we're going to do that, why don't we start our own CDL school? And they thought, you know what, that's a good idea. Go ahead. I had no idea. I had no idea as far as, what it took to get a school started. So a lot of research, about a year worth of research. And here we are 5 years later and about ready to start our 30th CDL class.
That's awesome. Now, out of curiosity, from the age of 18 to 21, what did you do?
I actually worked with my dad as a boat mechanic.
Okay.
So it was funny because when I went through, I did a career assessment right after high school.
Hmm.
And when the results came back, the results were I was going to either be a mechanic, a truck driver, or a teacher. And I've actually fulfilled all three.
Wow.
So
That's a great assessment.
it was a fantastic assessment. I even went back to the counselor who gave me the assessment, who still is around. And I told him, I said, John, I said, you're not going to believe this, but your assessment worked. I said, I've done all three. And he just, so it's exciting. And now this is, it could have came back where, the teaching part would have been my passion, because this is where it's at. It's educating. It's letting people know what this industry is all about. I've combined my love of the truck driving industry, the transportation industry with my teaching, and I just love every part of it.
So you all are doing the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program. Why
Mhm.
don't you explain to those who are listening what it is, and why you guys decided to get involved?
Well, it actually, well, let's start with, what it is. Safe Driver Apprenticeship Program is a pilot program that the FMCSA came about with the infrastructure bill, that will allow us to, or any carrier that's interested, to train and hire 18, 19, and 20-year-olds for interstate driving, not just intrastate. Now, we all know that wonderful definition of intrastate. It's not just the driver, but it's also the freight. We've got trucks every day that never leave the state of Wisconsin, but the freight they haul does. So our 18, 19, and 20-year-olds can't. We also, when they came up with this program, there's other opportunities, for these high school age or post high school age students to get into. We weren't able to capture these younger generations because we're an over the road company. So 99.9% of our freight and our trucks leave the state of Wisconsin. But yet there was a pretty good interest in these younger drivers coming through. So when I found out about the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Program, the first step is to actually become an apprenticeship program or an apprentice with the U.S. Department of Labor, which we did. We wanted to give our regular adult, 21 and over students that credential of, being an apprentice for a couple of years with the DOL, eventually graduating that into a full-fledged driver. It means more training, a little bit more mentoring. I actually had the opportunity almost a year ago now to visit the White House. I was invited to the White House to listen to the president speak about the infrastructure bill, and the apprenticeship program came up. We applied to the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Program, and because of our safety rating and our work culture, we were brought in right away. Immediately, we had no problem getting involved in this. And here again, why did we do it? We want to be able to attract these younger folks. I've taught 18, 19, and 20-year-olds in our CDL school, and I find that number one, they're very easy to teach, and it's just like when I was 18, 19, or when I was 9 years old riding with my uncle. I wanted to be part of this big truck. I wanted to drive this big truck. They're not only paying attention to the point where, they're going to be able to teach this someday, but they're showing a huge interest, not just in the trucks, but exploring the country and seeing how this country works. So that's the exciting part. Another exciting part about this whole thing is we're giving these younger folks an opportunity to make an extraordinary living at 18, 19 years old right away, instead of having to go through that 4-year degree. We all know not everybody's out there, that wants to do a 2 and 4 year degree. So if we can offer them a $50,000, $60,000 a year job at 18 years old, that's very attractive.
Absolutely. Extremely. And what made you all want to get into the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program?
Here again, it's, I think a lot of carriers out there are in the same position we are. It's hard to find veteran drivers and keep them. It's a very competitive market out there. We've got, one company that offers this much per mile. Then this one says you're going to be home every night. This one says you're going to get your own truck and be home every night and make this much money. So it's really hard to compete and keep the veteran drivers. We're not, when we bring these younger folks on, there's been criticism out there. Well, you're going to use and abuse these young folks. No, they're coming in at the same entry level rate as a 35 or 40-year-old. They're coming in with the same benefits. They're going to get the same routes. We're no force dispatch. So again, I went through high school, and the biggest thing that our guidance counselors pushed were the 2 and 4 year degrees. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want, at that time, I didn't want to do that. And we have the same thing now. When I do career fairs at high schools, which I've got 2 of them coming up this week, I get a lot of interest because there are those that don't want to do the 2 and 4 year college degrees, but yet they want to make a decent living right away. So that's what we're pushing for. And that's what we try to attract them is into the industry. Let them know that you can start this at 18, do it for 10 years. You're only 28 years old. You could be doing what I'm doing. You could own your own company. The possibilities are endless with these folks, completely.
So tell me, when you go to the career fair, like you're doing this week,
Yeah.
what are you talking to parents and students? What's the interest level in these students? Are they're kind of just exploring, saying, I'm not really sure what I want to do, but I'm interested in kind of exploring things?
It's a variety. We get the ones that specifically, as soon as they walk into the auditorium, they just flock to the booth because they're interested in trucking. There's others that, are kind of on the fence. Real interesting presentation I made a couple of weeks ago was at a youth apprentice group. There was little over 80 students. Now, a youth apprentice group, most of them have already decided their career path, which is great. And I'm not going to try to turn them away from the path they've chosen. However, there was about 15 of them that were getting into the transportation industry in one form or the other, whether it's logistics, whether it's diesel mechanics, or whether it's driving. So I gave them the scenario of 2 of them walking into a business at the same time. And this is, say, for a diesel mechanic, okay? Same grade point average, same personality, but one has a CDL and one doesn't. Which one do you think they might favor? And the interest really started to escalate. It's like, you know what? I can go through a 6-week program, or maybe even the full apprenticeship program. That's only 3 years of my life, which is basically the same thing as a 4-year college. At the same time, I'm going to be making up to $60,000 a year and advance my career even further. So that's what we look for, is we look for those that want to be the drivers, but also the ones that want to get into this industry, because we all know diesel mechanics, brokerage, safety, dispatching. If you have that CDL, that's going to put you on a higher pedestal.
You all enter the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program. You are one of the pioneers of the industry, really seeking out these 18 to 20-year-olds. Tell us a little bit about the process of applying with the FMCSA, the Department of Labor. How did that go?
The Department of Labor was actually, we went through Fastport. And Fastport did a phenomenal job on getting us the application, walking us through the whole process. And it was relatively painless. I mean, it was a lot of forms to fill out, some background checking. And next thing we know, we find out we're a full-fledged apprentice program with the Department of Labor. Then, as far as the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Program, it's basically going to the website, filling out an application. Now, there's a lot of requirements. Number one, do we have the equipment? Well, first of all, let me back that up. Where's our safety rating? Okay, they're going to look at a carrier that's got at least a satisfactory safety rating. And I'm guessing that they're probably digging a little bit into the CSA score, which ours is remarkably low, which is I smile every time I see that number click down a little bit. Mm-hmm. Our work culture, are we forcing these drivers to do anything? Are we forced dispatch? Are we sending them out for 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time? Which we're not. We're 5 days out, 2 days home. Do we have the proper equipment, which is inward and outward facing dash cams, collision mitigation, lane departure warning, automatic stopping? We do. It just so happened that the last batch of trucks that we bought do, which is it's great because when you tell an 18-year-old they're going to be driving a 2022 or a 2023 semi, their eyes just light right up, because that's where the collision mitigation is on all these brand new trucks. Yeah. So they're really excited about that. So once we had all that insurance, we had to show that our insurance carrier was able to, accept this, and filled out the application. And next thing I know, about 4 weeks later, I get a congratulations from the FMCSA saying, welcome to the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Program. You can now start adding your apprentices.
So really, it doesn't seem like it was too difficult of a process.
No, it's not. It is not. The biggest thing that I will say is on the Safe Driver Apprenticeship website, there is all the guidelines that you need to follow. And it's important to have all your ducks in a row. Now, I've been researching this since I heard the term Safe Driver Apprenticeship Program. So we've been working on this, throughout. But for any carrier to move forward right now, if you go to that FMCSA website and follow those guidelines, it's actually painless, very, very painless, and very simple to do. I think, that's having to go become an actual Department of Labor apprentice program first is actually, it's not difficult. It's just very time consuming. And I think that might be deterring some carriers from doing this. But I can say if they deal with a company like Fastport, they'll walk them right through it, and it'll just be a matter of a few weeks and they'll be through it.
Great. So utilizing the intermediary Fastport.
Yes. Absolutely.
Is great. And we will put their contact information in the show notes here because we work with Fastport as well. Yep. They're a great company and they do a really great job.
They do.
So maybe one of the more difficult things to get approved was insurance. Tell us about that process.
Well, here, it's real easy to go at these insurance companies with an iron fist and say, listen, we're paying you guys all these premiums and this is the way we want to do it. We educated them. We let them know what's involved with the apprenticeship program and how safe these drivers actually are. Let me just give you a quick example. We do have an apprentice out on the road right now. And during his training process, it's got an inward facing and an outward facing dash cam, which he'll have in his truck till he's 21. The cameras in these trucks are so sensitive, it caught him taking his eyes off the road just for a split second, just to change the climate controls in the truck. And it alerted us that for a distracted driving. Now, we can substantiate that, okay, he's okay. All he did was, and he was, if you watch his eyes were constantly moving back and forth. He grabbed changed his climate control, and he was fine. We have the inward facing cameras in our school trucks too. So I did an experiment. I grabbed my cell phone and I held it up to my ear, and the camera and the e-log that's in there, actually the hardware that's in there, told me to put my phone down. And it immediately sent an alert to our safety department. And of course, 2 seconds later, I get a phone call. So now I was parked in the driveway. Okay. But it did recognize that I had the brakes released. So it did recognize that I could have been driving. Okay. So when we talk to the insurance companies about this, we let them know that the coaching doesn't stop when the trainer's out of the truck. It continues. We have had other instances where the camera caught him doing the same thing. Or if he decides to flip the sun visor down in front of the camera, it'll alert us that the sun visor's down. Have him flip the camera back up, or the visor back up. So it's letting these insurance companies know, number one, they've gone through about 7 weeks of training with a trainer. Okay. We have to report on them monthly until they're 21. And the reporting is very easily. Bring them up in the system. Any incidents? Nope. We electronically transmit their logs the same way we'd electronically transmit them to law enforcement. Same way. Very simple. They have the information. Boom. If there's an incident, if it's an accident, if there's tickets, that all has to be reported within 24 hours. So they analyze that, what happened. So far, so good. Knock on wood. We haven't had to do that. It's just the normal reporting. So once we talked to our insurance company about that, they were in the same way of thinking as we are. And that's, hey, we need to get these young folks out and working. Let's give them an option. So they had no problem actually, insuring them and going forward with it.
So, one thing that we had talked about, and you probably experienced this with what you're involved in with the Wisconsin Motor Truck Association, is carriers saying, oh, my insurance won't let me.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on other insurance carriers and, that process.
We formed an education committee within the Wisconsin Motor Carrier Association specifically to tackle some of these things, where we can get out as an association, as a committee, and educate, because we have insurance companies that belong to the association also, just like most trucking associations do. And it's letting them know and showing them the statistics. Wisconsin Motor Carrier Association actually did a study back in 2019. I know it's a little bit older. We're going to hopefully update that with the cooperation of the Wisconsin State Patrol on 18-year-old commercial drivers. Now, obviously, we know that 18, 19, and 20-year-olds can drive commercially as long as they're intrastate if they're not part of the apprenticeship program. The number one violation for an 18-year-old driver was seatbelt. That was a seatbelt violation. The number two was speeding at a low range, meaning 6 to 10 over. The number three was the higher range of over 11 miles an hour. And the number four violation was distracted driving. And when they did that study, they only found 4 instances of that. It was 680 different drivers, I believe, that were surveyed. I'd have to get the exact amount, but it was pretty close to that. But it did show the number one violation as being seatbelt. So that's the other thing, is we need to get, obviously with entry-level driver training, they're going to get good training in the CDL school. Then they're going to be with a trainer for their first probationary period of 120 hours, then their second probationary period of 280 hours, and then they're going to be monitored until they're 21. They're going to be scrutinized more so than a driver that's over 21. So that's where we're able to talk the insurance companies into it. What we're hearing from some of the carriers is, okay, my insurance company wants them to at least be driving for 5 to 10 years, not commercially, but have a driver's license for that. Well, an 18-year-old is only going to have their driver's license for 2. Okay, so most states are 16 years old. Some are 15 and a half now. So you're wiping that whole generation out, including somebody that's 20, could be 25 years old. So it's just letting them know that these drivers are safe. Now, when we bring an apprentice in, if they obviously they have to work for us, so we do an extreme amount of vetting and background checking. We do get parents involved. If now remember, they're 18-year-olds, so they are adults. We advise them that hey, if you want to bring your parents in so they know where we're going. We ask them a lot of different things on, are they realistic about this, or they just want to get into the truck? Think about this. Do your investigation on trucking. Find the background on the company. Find the background on what truck drivers are all about, and see what kind of answers we get. It's almost like our own little aptitude test. And the one that we have out there and the couple that we've got coming in have answered the questions the right way. It's not just what we don't want to hear is, oh, I can't wait to make that $65,000 a year. That's like, let's maybe back off on that one a little bit.
Yeah. So they're really excited about being a professional driver and that being their future, as opposed to just like, well, I don't know what I want to do, so I'm going to do that.
And what we talk about, there's a study a long time ago that the average, tenure of a newer truck driver might be 3 to 5 years, and they get bored with it and they want to be out of it. At 18 years old, if you do this for 3 to 5 years, at 22, 23 years old, think of the possibilities that you could go into. Our company is forever growing between dispatch and brokerage and safety and diesel mechanics. We'd love to keep them here if they don't want to keep driving, because we hopefully will just keep turning drivers over. So the career possibilities are endless.
Yeah, and that's right. And they're going to be well-trained in our industry and hopefully staying within our industry, because what we do is very important to the economy, to our country. And Generation Z, they're very interested in being a part of a career that gives back and that has a bigger meaning. And I think that trucking is a no-brainer for that. We have to just start introducing these young people to trucking.
On that same note, one of the things I ask, number one, every CDL class And every presentation I do, whether it's a youth apprentice group or it's a high school, I always ask them. And I even asked this to senators and congressmen when I was in Washington, D.C. Name me one item that's not delivered by a commercial truck. And I don't mean a semi. I mean, a straight truck, anything that's going to require a CDL. I have yet to have an answer because you can't.
Right.
You can't.
So Tim, you are involved in your local schools and the career fairs. And say I'm a carrier and I have never been involved in my local school. How do I start to get involved? What do I do?
That is a great question. That's a fantastic question. The first thing I always reached out to is a guidance counselor. And a lot of times their hands are tied. It's like, okay, they've got to check with the rest of the administration. But here again, it's not like, hey, I'm Tim, I'm from Karl's, I want to come in and talk about truck driving. It's the approach. It's, hey, I tell them who I am, what I do. We've got the Safe Driver Apprenticeship program. And if they're not even interested in that, that's fine. We can still train 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. But we have career opportunities that we can talk to these folks about where they could make, a decent living with decent benefits right at 18 years old. Then I'll ask them, do you have students that are just flat out not interested in the 2 and 4 year degree? And the answer to that is always yes. And a lot of it's followed up by, we don't know what to do with them. Or we give them these, these other trades and, welding and some of the other trades. But the funny thing is transportation never comes up because everybody had this preconceived notion that you could only do this as a 21-year-old or older. So now when we tell them, not only can they go interstate if they come on with us, but if they don't want to come on with us, we can still train them as a truck driver and get into transportation at 18 years old. You can hold a CDL at 18. Well, that opens up a lot of eyes. So when I talk to the guidance counselor, then usually it goes to the administration. There's been a couple times where I've had to talk in front of school boards. And by the time I get done talking in front of school boards, I have school board members asking me, how do I get involved? How do I get my son involved? How do I get students involved? They didn't know. They just didn't know. They thought, here again, and unfortunately, it's the industry that sometimes can be its own worst enemy. All truck drivers are just, they're big old fat people and, they're slobs and they pee in people's parking lots. Well, that's not how it is. The way I'm dressed right now is how I used to dress when I trucked. And you can talk to these people about running this truck as their own company. So if somebody is real business savvy, or maybe that's the degree eventually they want to go with, or maybe they want to own their own truck, you can start that from the very beginning. It's like, I'm running my own company. I do have to follow the rules of the company I'm working for, but you're out there by yourself and you can run this as your own company. So getting in the school, like I said, getting a hold of the guidance counselor, a youth apprenticeship group, or even just emailing the school board president, which I did on a couple cases. And it wasn't that long after that I got emails back from guidance counselors saying, hey, I got the email from our president. We definitely want to explore this. I'm a firm believer that if you're gonna do this, as far as guiding these younger folks in high school as a guidance counselor, open their opportunities to everything that's out there. And I think what it is, it's just a lack of education. And this is where I like to go at it, is just talk to the schools, talk to the school boards, and even talk to the parents.
And so you are doing that in what, like a 30, 50 mile radius of your location?
We've actually expanded. Yeah, currently right now it's about 30 to 50 miles, but we have about 200 high schools on our list right now that we actually want to try to visit. We're catching everything within the area. The one job fair that I'm going to on Thursday will actually have 4 area high schools involved. So I'm kind of nailing, 4 birds with one stone here, which is really good. There's another one, the one I'll be attending on Wednesday, that'll have 2 other schools with it. So there'll be 3 in that one. I have a school board presentation up in my hometown the week of I think March 15th is when I'll be presenting up there. And unfortunately, because of snowstorms and some of the colds and sicknesses that have gone around, this has been pushed off twice. So finally, we're keeping our fingers crossed that I can get into that school board. But they keep telling me, Tim, we need to hear about this. We need to hear about this. We want to move forward. We're actually looking at making CDL training in a couple of these high schools an elective. So their senior year, it's actually going to be part of their curriculum. And I know we're going to be, NextGen is doing the phenomenal job of getting this curriculum ready to go. And we can't wait because it's going to be in these high schools.
Yeah. And it's really exciting. If you were to say to say a carrier in Georgia, and they're thinking, should I get involved with young people or should I just continue status quo? Why do you think somebody, as a trucking industry professional, why should they start to think about the next generation and getting involved?
Because our we're losing drivers like crazy in retirement. I mean, the average age of drivers is starting to go way up. It used to be when I was driving, it was, early 50s. And now we're starting to see it even here at Karl's where, we're mid 50s, upper 50s. And my personal, I'm going to go right back to earlier in our conversation where, and I hate to use the word mold. I don't, but that's kind of what we're doing is we're molding them into a lifelong career at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
So they may not stick with you as a driver, but most carriers do have other, things that they can do, that their ex-drivers can do within the company. And that's what we look at. We're in the process right now of making some changes within the company. And we always look at our drivers first before we try to hire from outside. And fortunately, it's worked. So as far as, another carrier, number one, if you're affiliated with any kind of an educational institution, a CDL school, you're here against another carrier that might be down here. We have a CDL school, we have a carrier. So we've kind of got the best of both worlds. Doesn't mean you can't start one. There's always that possibility too. But it's enriching these younger folks, getting them involved, knowing that the attrition from retirements, the average age of truck drivers is going up. We need to start getting that age down a little bit to where they're going to stay in that career a little bit longer.
Absolutely. So why do you think a carrier and us as an industry, why do you think we need the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program? What's the purpose of it? What is it going to do for us as an industry and as a country moving forward?
Well, as we all know, and we hear from media, transportation media, trucking media, that we're at about 80,000 drivers short with no really way of trying to figure out how to correct that problem. Well, look what we can do with 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. That's a generation or generations that we have never been able to tap into before. So you look at the thousands of 18, 19, and 20-year-olds that could get into this industry and curtail that problem. Where we're going to be in 10 years, if this trend keeps going, we're looking at hundreds of thousands of drivers being short. Now, I've heard it before, and I'll hear it again. Well, autonomous trucks are going to take all the drivers out of the picture. I fly a lot, and I've never been on an airplane yet that doesn't have a pilot. However, they get it off the ground and they go make a sandwich or whatever they do for the next 2 hours, and then they get back in there and land the plane. Same thing's going to happen with autonomous trucks. You may not see somebody in the driver's seat, but you're going to see an operator of that vehicle backing it into a dock, getting it out onto the expressway. So I'm not concerned about that. There's always going to be an operator out there. What a better operator than some of our younger generations who can outperform me on my grandkids can outperform me on my phone and on my computer. Because they're being brought up in this environment. Technology, even with the Safe Driver, with the trucks that we have to use, the technology in these trucks, that's another attractive piece. When we tell them all this technology, it's like, oh, wow, I can't wait to get in there. There's 13 computers that make this truck move. And if one goes down, the truck sits. So they're all excited about that. So it's going to bring the age down. It's going to give our younger generation that opportunity. It's an area that we can tap into now, especially if this goes beyond the end date of, I believe, late 2025. If we can
Mhm.
keep this going, this is a huge amount of personnel that we can tap into that we've never had that opportunity before.
So, what would you say to a company who has kind of started considering doing the safe driver apprenticeship program, or they haven't really thought about it, but they think maybe I could do it? What would you say that they should do, and where to start?
Call me.
Oh, okay.
So I seriously get involved. Get involved with associations. Get involved with NextGen. I mean, there's no question about it. What you've done and the group has done with the NextGen trucking has been incredible. When I found out about your group, I immediately, boom, we're in. We're in. This is where I want to be. This is, I had a chance to meet Dave. I haven't met you in person yet, but I had a chance to meet Dave at the Commercial Vehicle Training Association seminar or conference in Virginia last year. And it's just, you've got to, if you're thinking about it, don't think about it. Just do it. Just
Mhm.
actually get out there, research it, get on the website. If you're not a DOL apprenticeship program, get a hold of
Mhm.
Fastport. They will do all the work. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of you filling in some information and signing some paperwork. There's no, I mean, and then get on with the FMCSA, because that's what we need. We need more and more we need to make this pilot program work, and we need to either extend it or make it permanent. I don't see any reason right now with what the requirements are to not make this permanent.
Yeah. So, do you foresee this being a permanent? Them saying, "Okay, this is a three-year program, but 3 years is up. We've determined from the statistics of the 18 to 19-year-old, 20-year-olds in this program that they were just say as safe as a 26-year-old, and we're going to continue the program." You think that that's how it's going to work?
I'm I'm hoping and I'm optimistic,
Hmm.
based on what I see with the number one, the training that's involved, the documentation of the training, the the technology that's required in the trucks. Um, we can hire a 21-year-old right now. Okay, I can put somebody through my class at 21. They go through 6 weeks of training. We put them through our finishing program, which is 3 weeks. Okay, there's 9 weeks of training, and we turn them loose. Okay, there's no inward facing camera. There's no collision mitigation. There's none of that, monitoring. So when we bring the 18, 19, and 20-year-olds in where they have all that, they've gone through 6 weeks of CDL training. They've gone through 7 additional weeks of finishing training. And they're going through, if they're 18, another 2.5 years of monitoring. They're going to be some of the best drivers at 21 that we've ever seen in this industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Tim, tell me, I want you to give a 30-second elevator speech. I'm an 18-year-old and I've been considering a career in trucking, but what would you say for me to really, push me over the edge of why I should become a professional driver?
Well, one of the first things I ask them, I don't bring up, pay doesn't come up at the beginning. Pay comes up
Mhm.
at the end. Okay.
Okay.
Um, how would you like to see this country and with the most technologically advanced semis out there? Okay. And get paid for it. Be home every weekend. By the time you've done this for 3 to 5 to 10 years, you have now the potential of getting into owning your own company, buying your own truck, doing what I do. I try to make all my presentations as interesting and lively as I can. And, we'll see that with some students. And then, oh, by the way, how does, 55 to $60,000 sound as an 18-year-old? Okay. Plus bonuses, plus you're going to be driving a 2023 or 2022 truck. Yes, we're going to be watching, but we're not going to sit at our desk and watch you all day long. We're going to watch you if there's an incident. And if there's an incident, we're going to coach you. We're going to make you the best driver
Mhm.
that you've ever thought you could be. You're going to see how this country works. You're going to see how you can finally answer that question. Name me one thing that's not delivered by a truck. And that answer is going to be, I don't know, because I'm delivering everything. Um, I want them to see the excitement, but I also don't want to sugarcoat it. Yes, you're going to be away from home. Um,
Mhm.
you've been home for the last 18 years. How would you how would you like to not be home and maybe be away from, a lot of 18-year-olds are just getting out there. So, okay, maybe you can still live at home, but you're only going to be home on the weekends. The money you could put away. What do you want to buy? I'll ask them, what do you want to buy? Well, I want a nice big truck. Okay, maybe you can do that. You can start putting money away. You can start your retirement. By the time you're 50, 55 years old, you could look at retiring, and maybe doing what I do part time. So it's exciting. It's what I like about this industry is it's ever changing. Technology is ever changing. What we deliver is ever changing. Where we go is ever changing, and that's what makes it really interesting. So you should come on board.
Yeah, I just read an article today that said the average college graduate right now has $38,000 in
In
student
debt,
loan debt.
yeah, in debt.
And I'm thinking at 18, you get into this for 4 years. How much money are you going to have in savings?
Oh my gosh, you're going to look at somebody that's been doing this for 4 years, and their friend was just in college for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to say, well, yeah, I did what I wanted. And I'm not discouraging here. Again, I'm not trying to discourage anybody from a 4-year degree. If that's the way you want to go, great. But maybe you wanted to become a lawyer or a doctor or a vet or a business person, and you took a 2-year, 4-year degree. So now you're at, 30, 60, 90, $120,000 in debt or more. And I've been in the trucking industry for 4 years, and I just bought my first brand spanking new pickup. And oh, by the way, I put a down payment on my house. So you're not going to be able to buy a new pickup or put a down payment on your house until your loans are paid for and you start making money, which we all know, especially when you get into, becoming a lawyer, a doctor, the money doesn't start right away. It takes a while for that money to start.
Yeah.
And this is basically from day one, and not just the money part of it, but the benefits part too.
So, our message today, and Tim and I are on the same page, is if you are on the fence about being in the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program, you need to strongly consider it. Have a conversation with your insurance company. Talk to Tim. Get involved with NextGen. We would love to support you in getting 18 to 20-year-olds starting to work for you and getting them excited about the industry. The time to act is now.
Yes.
We are in perfect agreement with that. As we started and formed NextGen, everything has fallen into place, including this FMCSA Safe Driver Apprenticeship Pilot Program. And we are excited about the future and about what we can offer these students. One of the fun things I always say is that what we did, we started NextGen for the industry, but what we've found is that it quickly turned into are doing this for students because we are seeing that it's changing students' lives, and now they have a hope for their future, and their family and their family tree is changing because of these jobs that we are connecting them to. And it's really exciting.
It is exciting. That's how I feel about it. It's how I feel about being part of NextGen, Fastport, FMCSA. I mean, I know there's a lot of us that never thought it would be exciting to be able to be part of FMCSA in this industry, but they're doing a great job. Between FMCSA, Fastport, M. Davis Company, who's the third party involved in the Safe Driver Apprenticeship Program for reporting, everybody's doing such a phenomenal job. And I want to be able to, if I can reach out, or if somebody wants to reach out to us, Lindsey will have my contact information available. I can't say anything bad about this program, other than the fact I think it may end too soon if we don't get involved more. We need to get more people involved, more carriers involved. So
yes,
student interest is there. So there's no question about it. The student interest is there, but we got to get the carriers involved. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you being on the show today, Tim. And as always, it's a pleasure to talk to you. So thank you.
Same here, Lindsey. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.